Welcome back, and now it's time for the big story. Well, on our big story today, we have a very interesting topic that touches everyone, boy, man, woman, child, young and old. We're talking about the environment. Now, it might interest you to know that tomorrow, the 19th of September, is World Cleanup Day. And when we talk about cleanup, it has to do with cleaning no other place than our environment. You recall that in 1984, when the then military regime of General Muhammad Buhari came on stream, one of the phases of the war against indiscipline then was the environmental sanitation of our country. And that gave birth to cleaning our environment on a designated day. From then on, up until this day, Nigerians have developed an attitude of keeping a day aside for environmental sanitation. Sometimes you go to markets and the markets are not open on that particular day, and when you ask what's happening, they'll tell you we're having our environmental day today. Every last Saturday in some states are declared Environmental Sanitation Day, and as a matter of fact, it had been a national policy not until the Olusegun Obasanjo administration, somewhere in the year 2000 or thereabout, had put it out, saying it was a waste of man hours and you don't really have a special day for environment. The environment has to be cleaned every now and then. Howbeit, some states, some markets, some organizations still cut out a day for environment. Now, the United Nations, seeing the importance of cleaning an environment, has set up a day known as the World Cleanup Day. Against the backdrop of this very day, where Nigeria, amongst the Committee of Nations, will be joining the world in marking, today we decided to look at the challenges of managing a clean environment. And we have coined it out this way: the challenges of creating and maintaining a green environment. When we say a green environment, we're talking about environment void of greenhouse gases, where there's no burning, fumes from exhaust pipes, plastics everywhere, and dirty gutters, not desilted, and all of that. These are challenges that we face in our environment. How do we manage this? But you will agree with me that if you look at pictures of some of the communities and cities in Nigeria, there are some cities that are very great, nice, whereas there are some that are basically an eyesore, and you wouldn't want to be identified with such cities. Taking a look at your screen, you look at some of these things. We see some of these in our environment. One of the major challenges are plastics. We'll be talking about that, but just before we go on, I want to meet minds with Marvelous. You do know very well that managing of our environment is a great challenge.
Yes, it is. It's a big one.
And when you look at serene environments, estates, they look very green and serene.
Yes.
Lush grasses, less of fumes and all of that. How do we manage this economy? You go to cities, get into Onitsha, for instance, or the heart of somewhere in Asaba, go to Bogologo Market, or you go to Oshodi in Lagos, or you go to somewhere at, Abaraba, somewhere in Abuja, all those busy areas. All you get is fumes, smoke,
yes,
dump sites,
pungent smell.
What do you make of all that?
I do feel that we could do better, but we've had this culture of lack of maintenance for public facilities. I mean, you would drink water in your house and you wouldn't just throw trash on the floor. But you're on the streets because it's not your house, it's not your living room or your bedroom, you can drink water and decide to discard it, especially in marketplaces.
Marketplaces. And I'm wondering, we have sanitation fees being paid by traders most times.
Yes.
And in some local governments, we have sanitation rates being served on you. And in some state capitals, you have the Environmental Sanitation Agency and other revenue collectors collecting fees for environment. And we are wondering, do they really pick these things? And when they pick them, how do they dispose them? Do we talk about recycling and all of this? These are issues we'll be talking about this morning. And joining us in the course of the program is an environmentalist who has actually had years of environmental practice and studies. I'm talking about a man who is the executive director of BlueGreen Initiative for Sustainable Development Network. He's Mr. Ediongsenyene Ndunobong. He'll be joining us via Zoom.
Yes, he'll be joining us shortly. We don't have him on yet.
Yes, and when we have him, we'll be looking at these issues. Let's look at cities. There are some cities in Nigeria people say are very clean. Now, about 2 NGOs, can't remember their names right now off the cuff, 2 NGOs have actually been giving some states repeatedly, back-to-back,
yes,
awards for being the cleanest states in Nigeria.
Okay.
And Akwa Ibom has won that back-to-back for 2 years. And we used to know Cross River. It's very clean. You go to some areas in Abuja, very clean.
Very clean.
And I begin to wonder, what makes some areas very clean, so serene, lush green, and all of that, and some other cities, even the very state capitals, I don't want to mention some state capitals, but I do know some areas, even very close to the quote-unquote government reservation areas,
yes,
that have turned those areas into GRAs, which I may call government rejected areas. So we all have a responsibility. It starts from education.
Yes.
You have to be educated on how to dispose waste and the dangers. We also think about poverty. The United Nations link poverty to poor environment. What's the nexus between poverty and a poor environment?
I am talking about poverty and the poor environment. Well, when, like you've talked about, when you mention these areas now that we see are clean and they look evergreen, you check the people who live there, mostly the rich and well-to-do and affluent. They do that. I think at some time, I served in Kaduna. At some point, there are some parts of Kaduna that you go to and you'll be wondering where you are. Feels like you are overseas. They all have trees planted outside. They all have trees, like the trees are lined up in their compounds, on the streets, and then you go to the other part of town and you don't see anything like that.
Most estates, you know, if you look at estates, you find them very tight. I think what's the role of government in all this? Because unplanned cities also have a challenge.
Unplanned cities. We're still talking about the role of poverty and all of. Just this morning on my way to the office, I just saw someone. She's supposed to be on her way to the market. She has some goods for sale, and she also had goods, some refuse to discard. She just pushes her wheelbarrow to a point, she parks, and then she begins to throw them on the streets. She threw them on the streets and then continued with her goods to the market. And I'm like, if this is her throwing it on the street, some persons take it to the market, they get to the market and then they decide to dump the refuse right there in the market.
One would say it's ignorance, no level of education or something. But let me shock you. We've been to a place where we've seen somebody who parked his SUV somewhere and then parked by a receptacle which was meant to be for disposal of waste. I think it was put there by the NDDC. NDDC was marked on it. And I had another one there that had a great mark, the State Environmental Sanitation Agency, 2 receptacles, but they were full. And this young man, educated perhaps, very affluent also perhaps by his dressing and looks, parked his SUV, opened the boot, and brought out neatly packed sacks of disposables and dumped right there on the floor and drove off. And I had it right on my cameras. And I'm beginning to wonder, is it just about education and poverty alone? It's beyond.
I mean, this now is a very special case. Now, I could say probably because the dumpsters were full.
Yeah, but she should have been the one even educating others. Move and throw it in properly. But again, the environmental sanitation agencies of various states is very peculiar, not just to one state. They should also make sure that they evacuate this waste, because what they do most often than not is they give out these things through PSV, private sector operators, and then perhaps sometimes they're not paid, so these people, renege and don't evacuate the waste. Sometimes they're actually paid, but they bring politics into it. Most of the states, the environmental agencies give contracts to their cohorts, and you don't have impactors, you don't have evacuation vehicles, you just collect the contracts and sublet it. So the result is that you have broken down vehicles and you have to pick up the refuse from receptacles, and they're not carried for weeks.
I did speak to a PSP operator some time ago, and he talked about how they're supposed to come to the houses to pick up the refuse and then throw it at a place designated by the government and provided by the government. And then for a very long time, the place was full. They needed help to, push the refuse into the borough pit that was dug and all of that. But it took the government about 3 or 4 months, and in those 3-4 months, they didn't come to pick up refuse, and the whole neighborhood was just, I don't know, I don't even want to talk about it. And their excuse was that, where do they take it from if they come to pick it up from the houses? That we should speak to the government to clear up their dump sites, and when it's cleared up, they will come pick it up. And we had to suffer this for months.
And you will agree with me that environmental management, waste management, particularly that sector of environmental management, is a challenge. Many states of the Federation have had challenges with regards to waste management. In some states, you still see vehicles evacuating open waste picked up from designated sites across the cities.
Yes.
And my challenge is, where are they taking this waste to? The dump sites are just kept in some sites away from cities.
Yes,
like in Akwa Ibom State, for instance, there is a dump site that was close to the government house. It was only recently that there are plans to take that away from there so that we can look at proper evacuation of this waste where we can generate wealth from waste.
Yes.
Recycling in India. I witnessed, I happened to have visited India severally. In India, I noticed that waste is used to make gas and even electricity in some areas. In Haryana's district, in a little bit from Punjab state, you have waste being dumped and collected and dumped and changed to biogas. And the gas is sold to people in the neighborhood and also transformed for electricity. So your dustbin don't turn to NEPA. So I think we can also look at that. In case we're having trouble trying to get with connect with our guest via Zoom, we probably would also try to explore the option of getting him via telephone, and just to ensure that we have him online. We will be having him online. But just before we get him, let's also talk about the issue of recycling.
Yes.
And the problem we have with clean and green economy. Most of the waste disposal sites that are kept by the roadsides where people will come and residents dump their waste. You have scavengers. I had you read on the news this morning.
Yes.
The Iron Ponde.
Iron Ponde. Yes.
They also play a very, very negative role. They scatter all these and bring them to the road, throw them back into the ditches and into the drainages and waterways, and it becomes a problem. That brings us back to government. What kind of legislation can we bring forth to ensure? I know in some states, like in River State, in Akwa Ibom State, yet to confirm. Delta State also, there's something being done where it has been outlawed. We don't have scavengers.
Yes.
You know, it's actually been outlawed in Delta State.
Delta State,
but we still find them in various corners across the state, like in Ugeli. They have an association.
Yes, they have an association. They're supposed to have this vest on. According to them, those who have the vest on are the ones to register, the ones who don't have the vest. But you see some of them, they don't even have it on. They tie it somewhere around their wheelbarrow. So, I mean, you meet a scavenger and you're asking, where's your vest? Let me be sure that you're registered. And it's even a vest that anyone could recreate. So how are you sure that these are the registered scavengers or not?
That brings me to another.
Okay, we have a guest on.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, if we have him now, and we would like to actually properly introduce him. Talking about the clean environment and looking at the challenges of maintaining a green environment. We talked about it in our teaser earlier. We have with us, joining us thankfully, Mr. Ediongsenyene Ndunobong, the Executive Director of the BlueGreen Initiative for Sustainable Development Network. We wanted to know, the United Nations takes this very important.
Yes.
It's actually a global concern. When you check the pictures that we saw earlier, you look at some cities where refuse becomes a heaping situation. Are you not worried that after environmental sanitation exercises, it appears we have a refuse heaping competition? Every street, every street has refuse, you know.
There's this one that baffles me most. One time I was in Owerri, and they usually have this cleanup once a week where you're supposed to come clear the surrounding of your house, you clear the grasses, and then you try to dredge the drainage just in front of your own house. So everyone does that, and then we have clear drainages every week, but they just dump it beside the drainages. It rains the next day, it falls back. On Thursday, I don't know which day of the week that happens, and then on Thursday again, everyone is also out on the streets dredging it. Like, you keep doing the same thing, you're just going in circles.
A vicious circle.
Yes. And then there's also this set of persons who wait, there's just a river close by, they just wait, they carry, because you just talked about the blue economy, they just go carry everything and they dump
them in the river. In the river.
So what happens when you dump into the river? What do you think, what do they really think happens? Does it magically disappear when you dump plastic in the river? Or does it?
You know, there is this saying that if you don't take care of the environment will take care of you. And if you take care of the environment, it will also take care of you. Now, how do you want it to take care of you? Most of the floodings we have, it's caused by our inability to take care of the environment.
Yes.
So the environment fights back. Okay, and I can't wait to have this great environmentalist back on the line. But again, we were just talking about the blue economy and what the gains you can get from the blue economy, and how the environment, when if it's properly engaged in a proper manner, will help us do better. Well, for those of you who are actually wondering why the United Nations has set aside a day for cleanup, and it's called the World Cleanup Day, one would want to ask, why that day? Now, it is very simple. Cleaning up the environment is the beginning of the understanding of awareness that you must take care of your environment. Many people have the penchant of distorting the environment, whereas in some other climes we find people deliberately trying to take care of the environment.
Talking about deliberately taking care of the environment.
Planting of flowers.
Planting of flowers, and the way they dispose their refuse over there. I think I saw this lady on social media talking about how she recently moved to Canada, and she just saw some colored boxes where she's supposed to throw her trash. The trash cans, they had different colors. She said she had no idea why they had different colors. So she would just come every day and she would dump her refuse in them, and then for weeks it wasn't cleared. So anyone had to speak to her that you have to sort before you dump. The green one has a specific type that you put in there, maybe for plastic waste or for biodegradable waste or for metals. You just have to sort them. If you don't do that, they will come, they open that you haven't sorted, they just leave you alone and they leave it for you. But here in Nigeria, we don't have anything like that. We just bring everything together and then just...
You have spoken big grammar for some people. Biodegradable waste. It has to do with education again. Because in some climes, like I did remember while I visited India, in New Delhi, in front of you, your house, you have 3 bins. One is marked green, yes. The other one is marked gray, and the other one is marked red.
Yes.
Now the one that is green is where you put your biodegradable waste, that's your food materials and yes. things that can decay.
Yes.
And then the other ones where you put metals, the gray one, and the one where you put red are the things like plastics and all of that.
You can recycle.
Now plastics are very, very dangerous. It takes over 400 years, according to environmentals, for plastics, particularly polypropylene, those are the raw materials for plastics, yes. to decay. 400 years. So it can hardly even decay. It takes 400 years before you can see elements of decay. So when you throw your pour water, bottle
yes.
and all of sachet water and all of that, you know that we're in an economy of plastics. Those days we used to use paper to tie groundnuts,
yes.
foils and all of
yes.
that. But now everything is plastic, polythene, polypropylene and all of that. So it's all over the place. If a director can show us a refuse dump where there are plastic waste all over, you'll get to get the picture painted properly. You have plastic dumped everywhere, and when they're dumped, it becomes a problem. Now, what they do in India is when they come to collect your waste from you, the waste you generate that are biodegradable are carried away free. The ones that are degradable are also carried away free. Why do they carry it free? They carry it free because you have been able to separate it for them.
Yes.
So the biodegradable ones are taken away, and then without much of processing, they're dumped into the recycling incinerators, and then they process them. And before you know it, they're having manure from it, they're having biogas through methane, yes. and all of that. Then from the plastics, they recycle them and use them for producing of plastic cups, chairs, and all of that. And then the steel things, the iron and all of that, are recycled for all that. So that's what the condemned, what do you call them? Iron condemned people do. They do it manually and sell and make money from them. So you see how money is being made and the environment is kept clean. So we are interested and excited about the World Cleanup Day, where it's being celebrated tomorrow. And we're hoping that we'll domesticate this for tomorrow, where we'll have the chairman of the Delta State Environmental Sanitation Task Force who will be here in our studios. We'll be talking about it in a domesticated manner. Yes. All right, let's see if we can get our guest, Mr. Ediongsenyene Ndunobong.